Hello, everybody. This is me, Ali Mukhtar. I welcome you again in my lectures in literary criticism. Today's lecture is a very important one because it is going to shed light on one of the most influential writers in the history of English literature. This time will be with William Wordsworth, the representative author of the Romantic period. And if you remember with me in my previous lecture, we talked about Alexander Pope, the representative of the 18th century. Then today, before we start teaching William Wordsworth, we have to what? To hold comparison between the 18th century and the 19th century and to show the main differences and let us say the radical differences between these two important times. As we know, historically speaking, before the end of the 18th century, the world witnessed great changes, great political and, let me say, philosophical changes in in Europe and in the Western, let me say, body. Among these two critical changes was the French and the American revolutions. And these two revolutions were so influential, and these two revolutions changed the way of thinking. And you know that the French Revolution inspired the mind of Europe and the mind of people in the United States of America. And then during this time, a lot of, let me say, philosophical changes happened within the structure of thinking in Europe and in the Western world as well. Let us start with the 18th century and how they viewed the world at that time. Then we will move to the 19th century. As we see that the 18th century valued order. Number one, when we come to the 18th century, because it was the age of classism, it was the age of order, it was the age of reason, it was the age of rationality. It mainly depends on what? On rationality. And at that time, order was highly, let me say, highlighted. And we see even in the way of writing poetry, like Alexander Pope, John Dryden, and others, tended to impose on their, let me say, generation of writers a very, let me say, disciplined way of writing. If you remember with me that they were so, let me say, concerned with the taste of society, and they called for what? For the revival of the ancient writers. And then order, authority, rationality, all these, let me say, elements were highly considered during the 18th century. The order of what? Of society, the order of politics, the order of economic, and the order of poetry as well. And at that time, people viewed the world as a machine. This is a very important part. They consider the world as a machine that works harmoniously. And people within this huge machine work as parts. And then we see this machine is what? Is highly disciplined and systemized. And then there's no way for wrong production. This, let me say, philosophy affected poetry as well. As we see at that time, there were ready-made structures, okay, and the writers of the 18th century were obliged to what? To follow these ready-made structures in writing poetry. If you remember with me, I talked about heroic couplet, one of the most famous, let me say, structure that was used in writing poetry. Why? The reason is that they tried to keep the taste of people saved from change. But this, let me say, atmosphere didn't last for a long time. As I told you before, because of the coming of the French Revolution and then the American Revolution, then a lot of, let me say, new principles emerged within the body of Europe, and how people change their mind, okay, from order to another, let me say, perspective, and that we are going to discuss today in our lecture. Then we see let us compare with the 19th century. We see that the 18th century people, as I told you, viewed the world as a huge machine, systemized machine, disciplined machine, no way for any mistake. People were highly ordered and disciplined. While the 19th century people viewed the world as what? As an organic creature that grows naturally, spontaneously, without any restriction. يعني باللغة العربية نقدر نوضح القضية بأن مفكرين وكتاب العصر الكلاسيكي أو النيو كلاسيكي القرن الثامن عشر كانوا ينظرون إلى العالم أو إلى المجتمع على أساس ماكينة كبيرة، ومن ضمن هذه الماكينة يعمل الأشخاص. لا مجال للتغيير، لا مجال للخروج عن المألوف، كل شيء يقع تحت إطار الانضباط. لكن بقدوم الثورة الفرنسية والثورة الأمريكية أصبح هناك تغير في الفكر الغربي نحو individuality. Then this is a very important point that I have to talk about, that people started thinking, okay, deeply, and then they reoriented their thinking toward individuality, not toward collectivity. Then here we have the conflict between individuality, because the 19th century England emphasized and encouraged individuality rather than collectivity, because no way for collective society. It is the time of the individual people. Yes, again, as I told you, that the Romantic people or the 19th century people viewed the world or perceived the world as a living organism. مفكرين القرن التاسع عشر اللي هم الرومانسيين يعتقدون بأنه العالم هو عالم حي، كأنه كائن حي was always growing and eternally becoming. If you remember with me Plato and Aristotle, let us go back to Plato and Aristotle. If you remember, I told you before that Plato is what? Or he believes in the world of being. It is a static world. It is a fixed world, order, disciplined world. إذا تذكرون تكلمنا عن أفلاطون بأنه يؤمن بعالم الكينونة. It is the world of ideas, okay, idealistic world. While his, let me say, pupil, Aristotle, he said, no, the world is dynamic. Then he introduced a new theory called the theory of becoming, عالم الصيرورة, changeable. The same idea repeated here. The 18th century thinkers believe that the world is what? Is being, static, okay, not changeable. العالم ساكن. هؤلاء من يفكر بهذه الطريقة القرن الثامن عشر الكلاسيكيين. لكن الرومانسيين في القرن التاسع عشر they view the world as what? Organic, that grows what? Continually, and it is a becoming world. It is a changeable world, democratic world, dynamic, let us say, in other words. For the rationalistic mind, let us move to another point of view. For the rationalistic mind of the 18th century, the city housed the centers of art and literature. This is really very important. Let us elaborate this point again. The city housed the centers of art and literature and set the standards of good taste. Let us see how people were considered literature. In the 18th century, the poet was cut from his society. He has no direct contact and connection with his society. He is not from the lower class. He is from the high class. As we see, John Dryden was the laureate. I mean by the word laureate هو شاعر البلاط الملكي. Again, Alexander Pope was from the high class society. And then all their literature produced from their own readings at home. They have no any communication with their society. They never go to nature. They never sit in the cafes or among the common people to know their problems. Therefore, we see that their poetry was highly devoted and dedicated to the high class people. يعني قصائد جون درايدن وقصائد ألكسندر بوب كانت تخاطب الطبقة الراقية في المجتمع. إذا نتذكر قصيدة ألكسندر بوب المشهورة The Rape of the Lock or John Dryden, Absalom and Achitophel, all these poems talk about the high class issues and the problems. And the farmers, workers were not, let me say, included in their poetry because they have no, let me say, any prestigious weight within the order and structure of society at that time. Then, in contrast, again, I want to elaborate this point. And then the good taste is the production of the house, the cell of the writer. إذن الأدب هو نتاج صومعة الكاتب. He is completely isolated from his society. Then all his, let me say, taste and, let me say, knowledge is or are taken from the books that he read. Then he start, let me say, satirize, criticize, or write about society. Okay, not from his own personal individual experience. Again, this leads us to the fact that the 18th century poetry was objective, not subjective. Why it is objective? Because the writer takes into his consideration the general, let me say, scene of society rather than the individual needs of people in society. In contrast, the emerging 19th century citizen, إذا مواطن القرن التاسع عشر على نقيض من مواطن أو شخص القرن الثامن عشر, saw rustic places as fundamental. Oh, now we have this, let me say, radical change in the way of, let me say, or let us say in other words, there is a new orientation toward the countryside, the rustic places, the peasants, the farmers. The 19th century people moved to the countryside because they say that those people who live in the countryside are innocent, pure people and highly, let me say, sincere people in their feelings. And if you want to refine your language, if you want to modify your language, if you want to be in contact with the, let me say, genuine nature of a human being, you have to go to the people who live in the countryside rather than those who live in the city, because they believe that people who live in the city, okay, are filled with the diseases of society like hypocrisy, let me say, deceive, okay, or deceiving people, hypocrisy, etc., like these diseases that were so, let me say, popular at that time. And affectation, sorry, I want to remember this word, affectation, التصنع والنفاق and envy, other, let me say, social diseases which were, let me say, so popular at that time. Then they say that at the setting in which a person could discover the inner self. This is really so important for the Romantic period, that the countryside is the place where man can discover his inner self. It is no, let me say, way, or there is no time for discovering the selves of others. يعني في القرن الثامن عشر الشعراء كانوا مهتمين بقضية الآخر. نجد في القرن التاسع عشر أصبح الأنا, that is more important than the other. Here again we have the conflict of the self and the other. عندنا مشكلة أو قضية الذات والآخر. the self and the others. This is very, very critical, let me say, point that should be highlighted among critics. Then we see that the romantic people are personal people, and they are so, let me say, indulged with their own problems and passions, feelings, and then they try to, let me say, first deal with their own conflicts rather than the conflicts of others, because they try to emphasize individuality rather than collectivity. Yes. Then they were against what the rationalistic methodologies of the previous century. Then they are against methodology. They have no methodology like the 18th century people. في القرن الثامن عشر كانت هناك منهجية لكل شيء، في كتابة الشعر، في السياسة، في القانون، في الاقتصاد، في الذائقة الاجتماعية. Everything has a methodology to be followed, scientifically to be followed. While when we come to the 19th century, we see the opposite. There is no any methodology. People are free to write, to choose any topic to talk about that appeals to their hearts, not to their minds. Again, we are with the problem of mind and heart, as I told you before, that the 19th century people are highly, let me say, or they celebrate the heart rather than the mind. Again, believe that truth could be attained by tapping into the core of our humanity or our nature. Then truth is not found, according to the 19th century people or writers or thinkers. They believe that the truth cannot be discovered in books or in, let me say, methods or in the ancient writers' books. No, truth can be discovered in nature. This is really, again, one of the main, let me say, differences between the 19th century and the 18th century as well. Best thought in our original or natural setting. Such radical changes, these changes, and we call them radical, هذه التغيرات المتطرفة الجذرية في الفكر الغربي اللي انتقل من القرن الثامن عشر إلى التاسع عشر، وقلنا سببها واحدة من أهم الأسباب it was the French Revolution and the American Revolution, which inspired the world with a new, let me say, ideas concerning democracy, human rights, equality, etc., and freedom. Such radical changes found their spokesperson. The word spokesperson, it means mouthpiece, يعني الناطق الرسمي لهذه الأفكار in William Wordsworth. This is really the beginning of our, let me say, teaching. William Wordsworth is considered the spokesman or the mouthpiece of the Romantic period. And I will, let me say, postpone my lecture concerning William Wordsworth for next lecture. I will be sufficient with this amount of information about the differences between the 18th century and 19th century, and then tomorrow I have another lecture with you concerning William Wordsworth. As we said before, he is the spokesman of the Romantic period. Before we finish our lecture, we have to sum up the main findings that we tackled in our lecture today. Number one, we have to know that the 19th century is completely different from the 18th century. They are completely on contrast, because what the 18th century tried to maintain and to keep and perceive all collapsed before the, let me say, waves of thinking that, came with the 19th century, let me say, body of thought. The 19th century changed the map of thinking, and it produced new orientations toward understanding the world, including literature. And then again, if we say that the 18th century was purely objective, then we see that the Romantic age is completely subjective. And again, we see that the 18th century poets and philosophers were highly concerned with the others, because as we see that their literature was highly devoted to satirize, criticize the illness and behavior of their society, while the 19th century poets and thinkers, dedicated their poetry to what? To celebrate the self rather than the other. Then we see, or we are going to see, that William Wordsworth and his followers will talk about their own passions and feelings, and they consider these are so important and essential things to talk about rather than to talk about the society and its problems. Again, a great part of the Romantic poetry was written for pleasure, while the 19th century, the 18th century poetry was written for moral purpose, for teaching and other, let me say, considerations. Again, we can say that 18th century poetry is rationalistic, depends highly on the authority of mind and order, discipline, while the 19th century believes in the organic development of thinking, and they believe that life is becoming, not being. Thank you very much indeed for your listening, and I hope that you get benefit from my lecture today. I hope to meet you again tomorrow, inshallah. See you.